Hello, and welcome again to Maturing the Bride. We are in book number 3, which is known as Cat and Dog Theology. Once again, going over the premise, we're saying if we want to be the mature bride, if we want to rule and reign with Christ, we've got to live like a dog and not like the cat. That's our goal. And in today's talk, we're going to be talking about cat and dog marriages. What does a cat marriage look like? What does a dog marriage look like? In this, we're going to be going over the big picture of the purpose of marriage. And I'm going to be going over 5 different perspectives, 5 different reasons why people get married. And then after we go over those 5 different areas, we're going to be looking at 8 areas of marriage, very specific areas of marriage. And what's a cat act like? What's a dog act like? We're going to be looking at commitment, and then love, and then love languages, money, communication, free time, intimacy, and conflict. So we'll be going over those 8 areas. But let's start with the big picture of marriage. And I want to go over these 5 different perspectives. Now, I want to help you to understand it is not one or the other, all right? It's not you're either this or you're that. No, I want to help you to be asking the question, gee, am I more primarily a cat or am I more primarily a dog in these areas? And these areas are not categories that they're selective. You could be perspective 1, 3, and 5, or 4 and 2, and they're all going to blend in there and mesh. So your question is, am I more primarily dog or more primarily cat in these areas? Ready to go? Let's jump right into it. Perspective number 1. Here is the perspective. Number 1, marriage is here to make me happy. I want to be happy. And so I got married so that I can be happy, because I was so lonely as a single person. And I really didn't want to be lonely my whole life. My life was empty, and so I chose to be married. We all know of some young ladies who go to college to get their MRS degree. They're going looking to get married. Why? Because they feel empty inside. They feel lonely and they want to be happy. And they think marriage is going to do that for them. In Genesis chapter 2, we read these words. Then the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him." There it is. It's not good for man to be alone. See, I don't want to be lonely. The Bible says you're not supposed to be lonely. Therefore, I want to get married in order to be happy. Now, there's an opposite side to that, what I would call more the dog side, and that is this. Marriage is here to make us holy. It's primarily here to make us holy, not so much happy, but holy. And so in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, when it says it's not good, there can be 2 ways that you can take that not good. What most people understand it to be is that, number 1, I am so lonely. Not good means I'm lonely, therefore I need a spouse to make me happy. And that is one way of looking at it. But there's another way of looking at it, and that is this. No. I am so self-centered. So not good means I am a selfish person. And so I'm so selfish, God says, I'm going to give that person a helpmate in order to make them holy, to focus more on holiness. When I was single, I was mentored by a man by the name of Greg Livingstone, and he told me this once. He says, "Listen, Bob, when I was single, I was told that I was a sinner, and I believed him, and I accepted Christ into my life. When I got married, I found out I was sinful. And when I had kids, I found out I was utterly sinful." What he's trying to communicate is that the purpose of marriage is far more sanctification than anything else. And God says, the best way that I can make you like me is to put you in a committed relationship with another sinful person so that you have to work through the issues. And so the purpose, they would say, of marriage is primarily holiness far more than it is happiness. But you might be saying, well, wait a second, doesn't God want me happy? And the answer is absolutely yes, He wants you happy. But most of us try to find it in our spouse rather than finding it in God Himself. And so here's the question. Are you primarily a cat or primarily a dog on this one? Have you looked to your marriage primarily to make you happy? Or do you see it as for making you holy? Happiness versus holiness. Okay, perspective number 2. What is perspective number 2? Perspective number 2 is, hey, I'm getting married so I can have my needs met, whether it's financially, whether it's emotionally, whatever it is. I'm married so that I can have my needs met, whether it's a sugar daddy, whether it's whatever you want to call it. Especially for the woman, I want the man to meet my needs. I want him to take care of me. I want him to provide for me. I want a nice lifestyle so I don't have to work, so I can be a mom and raise kids. And that is why I want to get married. As opposed to that, no. I'm married to serve my spouse. So I'm getting married to serve my spouse. I'm getting married to help my spouse become more like God, to help my spouse become the man or the woman that they need to be. And so this is a taking versus giving. Which one do you see yourself in your marriage? Are you primarily a taker or are you primarily a giver? Perspective number 3. Kind of like number 1, perspective number 3, I just want to be loved. I'm not just lonely. I mean, deep down inside, I feel so unloved as a person. I had a dysfunctional family growing up. My parents didn't love me. I've been aching for love my whole life, and so I'm looking for a spouse who's going to love me. Men and women, you need to know that the best person that you can marry is someone who is happy or content being single. The best person to marry is a person who is content being single. If they're content being single, they're going to be a giver and not a taker. They're going to continue to give and to give and to give and to help you become the person that God wants you to be. So the dog way would say, hey, I want to point my spouse to God. I want to point my spouse to God. When my spouse looks at me, I want them to see the glory of God. That's my goal in what I do. That's my goal in how I treat my spouse every day, whether it's the good morning in the morning or whether it's making the bed or whether it's what you say on the way to work or off to whatever it is. I want my spouse to see God. I want my spouse to see God's glory. That's my goal in marriage. Many times when I'm going on trips, I write my wife little cards and I hide it under the pillow. Why? I want her to see the glory of God. In how I treat my spouse, I want her to see God's glory. Now, I am not perfect. Just ask my wife, okay? She'll tell you I am not a perfect dog. I have many cat tendencies. But I think she would tell you that I am more dog than I am cat, and that's our goal, to be more dog than cat. So in this third perspective, we're asking the question, is it more about being loved or is it more about the glory of God? 2 different perspectives in looking at marriage. Perspective number 4, I need to be in control. I need to be in control. Men and women, I see this in so many marriages where the woman has to be in control. And so she's the one driving the marriage, as we say in the United States. She's the one wearing the pants. And as I've been to Africa and Asia and all over the world, I see many marriages that are like this. And so they want to be in control. And so they're constantly trying to do things to manipulate their husband, to be this way, to do this, to do that, to run the marriage, to set the schedule, to do everything without consulting the husband. Whereas the true goal should be, no, we yield to God's control. Both of us are saying, Lord, what is it that you want for us? What is it that you want from us? What is it that you want us to do? We are here to serve you. So again, more cat or more dog in this area? Are you more worried about being in control or are you more worried about yielding to God's control? two different marriages, two different ways of looking at marriage. All right, perspective number 5. We're kind of going through these very quickly. This is similar to number 1 and number 3, and that is, I've just got to be me. I've just got to find me. I'm getting married so that I can just be me and be the best person I can be, and I want to be loved and I want to love, and so this is really all about me being the best me that I can because I was born to be married. Whereas a dog would say, no, 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 no. I'm primarily worried about becoming more like God. My goal is to be more like God, and I know marriage is going to help me with that. It's going to be hard. I'm going to fight it, but deep down inside, I need to be like God. And so, are you more cat or more dog? More worried about being you, the person that you want yourself to be, or are you more worried about being like God? 5 different perspectives on marriage. Happiness versus holiness. Taking versus giving. Love versus glory. I'm in control versus we yield to God's control. And I've got to be me versus I want to become like God. In each of those areas, I want you to ask yourself the question, am I more cat or am I more dog? Men and women, there's no perfect dog out there. All of us are flawed. All of us have cat tendencies. Again, ask my wife. She'll tell you I'm very much part cat, and I'll tell you my wife has some cat tendencies. But we overlook those because each of us is more like dog. Each of us tries to live for the glory of God. But we need to ask ourselves the question, are we more cat or are we more dog? Okay. Now let's get into those 8 areas of marriage. Number 1, commitment. Number 2, love. Number 3, love languages. Number 4, money. Number 5, communication. Number 6, free time. Number 7, intimacy. A lot are going to go to that one. And number 8, conflict. Let's focus on number 1, commitment. All right. In commitment, I want to tell you, I've seen many marriages where a spouse is just not all there. They're half committed to the marriage. They've got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And I see this in a lot of second marriages where the person's divorced and they're remarried. They're not all in. They're just half there. And their perspective on marriage is 50-50. I'm going to do 50 and you do 50. As I do 50 and you do 50, we'll have a happy marriage. Men and women, I'm here to tell you, that doesn't work. A 50-50 commitment doesn't work because you're always going to think they're doing 49, you're doing 51, you're going to feel uneasy about it, and it just doesn't work. You need to go into marriage with 100% commitment. I'm committed to you 100%. For better or for worse, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer. That's why they put that in a lot of marriage vows, because they want to say, no, we're 100% committed. No matter what happens, I'm committed to you 100%. And if they're only doing 50, that doesn't matter. You're worried about yourself giving 100%. And so the spouses are each committed 100%. And I had to work on this in my own marriage. I found out one day, I'm asking myself, hey, am I more worried about Team Bob or am I more worried about Team Debbie? And I got to confess, for a lot of the times, I was much more worried about Team Bob. We've been married for 35 years now, and I'm realizing I need to be more Team Debbie. And that's good, because I'm constantly learning to die to myself and to live more for the glory of God. Even now, after 35 years of marriage, I'm still learning. Still learning. We had a breakthrough at 10 years of marriage, if that has any kind of an encouragement for some of you. But we're always learning, always upgrading, because we're all part cat, learning to become more dog, more like God. Okay, let's look at some other areas of commitment. Cats want to change their spouse. I'm committed to you. I'm committed to changing you. I'm going to make you the person I want you to be. And I'm 100% committed to that. That doesn't work. No, 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 no. You need to love and accept your spouse just as they are. And that is what will keep you in a healthy marriage, to love and accept your spouse just as they are. And one of the worst things you can do, is to compare your marriage to other people's marriage. Compare us to them, men and women. That is apples to oranges. It is never going to work, and that's the fastest way to kill your marriage. The fastest way to kill your marriage is to say, well, he does this. Why don't you do it the way he does it? Or she does this. Why don't you become more like her? Oh, it'll kill you. It'll kill your marriage when you compare your marriage. Don't do that. Another area of commitment is in emotional fidelity. Yeah, I'm committed, but my heart is somewhere else. So I'm holding my wife, but I'm thinking about somebody else. Or I'm holding my husband, and I'm thinking about somebody else. Oh, you've got to fight that. You've got to fight emotional fidelity. It will kill your marriage. All right, let's move on. From there, we go to love. In the area of love, okay, cats say that love is a feeling. I feel loved and I feel in love. Dogs say, no. Love is a choice. It's a commitment. And those are two totally different perspectives on love. It's far more a commitment than it is a feeling. Now, feelings are there. Don't get me wrong. Feelings can be there. My wife and I have great emotional feelings for each other, but that's because underlying that at the foundation, it's a choice. It's a commitment. And because we've stayed committed, because we've never used the word divorce, because we've chosen to work through things, we've found more emotional love with each other. But a cat says, no, I'm going to change him, or I'm going to change the circumstances. If he doesn't change the way I want it to, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. And I'm going to get a divorce because there's no way I'm changing me, says the cat. I'm not the problem. My spouse is the problem. And my feelings are a higher priority than the glory of God. My feelings are a higher priority than the glory of God. Oh, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. When you become a higher priority than God's glory, it's going to crash. It's going to crash. A dog says, no, I'm the one that needs to change. I'm the one that needs to change and be different. I'm the one. And so that's their thinking. I'm going to change. I've got to pick up my cross. I've got to die to myself, pick up my cross daily, and follow Christ. So I'm the one that's going to change. Big difference in the area of love. A dog says, I choose to love my spouse. It's a choice. Whereas the cat wants the feeling. Okay, in the area of love languages, you all know that there are love languages, 5 love languages. Number 1, words of affirmation. Number 2, acts of service. Number 3, receiving gifts. Number 4, quality time. And number 5, physical touch. Now, here's what I see happening in most marriages. Number 1, for a cat, they don't study their spouse's love language. That's not on their agenda. Why? Because they're not really worried about their spouse. They're worried about themselves. They're more focused on what their needs are and what they want. And for a cat, if they do apply the love language, if they do apply it, they apply their love language to their spouse, not their spouse's love language to their spouse. Oh, mine is physical touch, so I'm going to apply physical touch to my spouse. When your spouse's love language is maybe words of encouragement. And so their spouse is not feeling the love that you want them to have if you want to reveal the glory of God to them. Dogs do study their spouse's love language, and they give their spouse their love language, the spouse's love language, not their own love language. And so they're constantly trying to meet the needs of their spouse. Another area, money. In the area of money, a cat says, you know what? This is our money, and then there's my money, the money that I make. There's one young couple that I know, and this young couple, they both have income, and the wife looks at it this way. She says, honey, your money goes to pay all the household bills, whereas my money does not go to pay the household bills. My money is my money. And so they're having a problem wrestling through finances because they're barely making it on his money, but she wants to spend all of her money on herself. And as a result, a dog says, no, the dog doesn't even say this is our money. Here's what dogs say. This is God's money. We've earned it, yes, but everything we have is a gift from God. Therefore, it's God's money. God, how do you want us to use this money? And that's what dogs are thinking. All right, let's move on in the area of communication. In the area of communication. All right, cats say, don't tell them everything. Don't tell them everything. I've got one young lady who is a cat, and she is engaged, but her husband does not know about her $100,000 worth of college debt and the fact that she never graduated. She's hidden that from him. And in order to hide it from him, she's had to hide her family and her parents specifically because she doesn't want her parents spilling the beans. And so she's on one coast, they're on another coast, and they've just never found time to meet. Why? After the wedding, they'll do it. Why? She's trying to hide things. And she's trying to do it. So a dog says, oh no, tell everything. Tell everything. When I first met my wife, I told her everything. She was a bit shocked. But I told her everything. I told her about my parents and about the alcohol and about my sister being gay and about struggles that I had. And she knew what she was getting into. You see, cats have secrets. Dogs don't. Dogs do not have secrets. Cats, to a cat, lying isn't a problem. To a dog, lying is a problem. Dogs don't lie. Let's look at another area, caves. If you're like me, men, you go into a cave. When I get hurt by my wife, when something's going on, I go into a cave. Cats love to camp out in caves. Believe me, I've been there. I've done it many a time. Cats love to camp out, but dogs struggle to get out of that cave as fast as they can. They try to work through it. They try to process it primarily before the Lord, and then they try to come out of it as fast as they can in order for their communication to be healthy. All right, another area, free time. In the area of free time, to a cat, free time is my time. I do what I want, when I want, and I don't really need to check with my spouse on it. I don't really need to ask them permission because it's my free time. Whereas to dogs, they try to do things together. Whether it's going hiking, whether it's community service, whatever it may be. I once, this past Christmas time, got tickets for my wife and I, and we went to the Nutcracker. Now, let me tell you, I am not a ballet fan. It's not my thing, but I knew my wife loved it, and so I got it for my wife. She was so over top excited about it because we hadn't been in years, and I knew she loved ballet. And so, but I did that together because I knew it would bless her. I knew that she would love it. And so as a result, dogs try to schedule in some us time. What can we do together as well as what can we do separately, because there are times when I love to go fishing and she doesn't like fishing. She's never fished at all. And so that's fine, but we both try to schedule in and balance out the me time versus the us time. All right, the one we've all been waiting for, intimacy. What is intimacy like? Hey, for cats and dogs, both cats and dogs, it can be very impromptu. It can be very spur of the moment. Hey, let's go into it. Let's jump into bed. And that's great. That's healthy. That's fine. For others, maybe cats and dogs, it can be scheduled. I've got one friend and says, my wife and I, we do it every Thursday night. Really? Yeah, we've scheduled it in. And as I've done research on it, I've found, yeah, a lot of sex therapists will say schedule it in on a regular basis. The one example that I saw on the website, the woman was a morning person and the husband was a night owl. It was hardly getting done, and so they scheduled it I'm sure they didn't have kids at this point in time, right after he got home from work. And so it was a scheduled time. It gets a lot harder when you get kids, let me tell you. It doesn't work that easily, but it can happen, scheduling it in. Unfortunately, cats can get deeply hurt when their spouse says no. The cats can get deeply hurt when the spouse says no because it's about them. And oh, this was so much me so many times in our marriage when my wife had a headache, whatever it might have been, no, and I just felt rejected. And cats can get deeply hurt rather than trying to say, okay, how can I respond in a way that's going to glorify God? All right, moving on to the next one, and that is in the area of conflict. Conflict. A verse that guides us is Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Men and women, I can tell you, out of 35 years of marriage, there have been two nights that my wife and I went to bed angry at each other. That's a great record. We are so thankful to God because we learned about this early on in our marriage. And so there were some nights when we had fights and we would say, we need to talk. And that's usually my wife saying it to me because I usually want to be in the cave. And so I have to get up because I've been laying down on the pillow. I have to sit up and then we talk about it and we fight through it. And as we fight through it, we wrestle. And as we wrestle, we eventually come to an answer. We eventually forgive each other after a pillow fight. No, not really a pillow fight, but we do work through it. And as a result, we've only two nights when it's happened that way. And on those two nights, we made up the next morning because we realized we just felt guilty, we felt wrong, and we felt that was so silly. But cats, no, cats will go to bed angry. And that anger will build and build and build and build and build until there are major walls in the marriage. There's major communication problems. And then usually the cat comes to a point where they withhold sex out of anger. They're angry, they're not in control, they're not getting what they want, and so they do not give sex to their spouse. And as a result, they really begin to hurt their marriage. Men and women, don't let the sun go down on your anger. Work through issues every night. Get it dealt with. Get it taken care of. All right, well, that ends our time. Let's do a quick review. Number one, the big picture and the big purpose of marriage. I talked about 5. Number 1, happiness versus holiness. Number 2, taking versus giving. Number 3, love versus glory. Number 4, I'm in control versus we're under God's control. Number 5, be me or become like God. In these areas, are you more cat or are you more dog? All right, well, most of us, unfortunately, we missed it because we've been 1 degree off. We thought this Christianity was about us. We thought Christ died primarily for us. And as a result, we went into marriage with a wrong perspective. And that's why so many marriages end up in divorce. Don't want that for you. That does not reflect and reveal the glory of God. Well, hope this was helpful for you. In our next time together, we're going to look at cat and dog parenting. What are cat parents like and what are dog parents like? Welcome to Maturing the Bride.